Hello, everyone. This is James from Tabletop Terrors, and this is part 6 of the Iron Heart of Innis. This will be the last part of what we're calling the first season. No guarantees of the second, but I like throwing that in there just in case. Maybe in 20 years we'll come back and do a reunion show or something like that. So, like I said, I am James from Tabletop Terrors, and we are going to go around and introduce our players as well as our their characters. So we will start with Cassie, who, when she's finished, should mute her mic so that we can't hear what she's doing.
Sorry.
But go ahead and introduce yourself, plug what you want to plug, and we'll go on from there.
Hi, I'm Cassie. I'm playing Eden Breakers today. She's, of course, this paladin knight. She's from Varnholm. She's very tall, blonde, kind of like almost Viking-esque, I suppose. Anyways, really looking forward to this last game. And, yeah, I'm excited. So let's get to it.
Awesome. All right, yeah, we'll go keep going in order from how I see everybody. So next is Mike Lasham.
Hi everybody, this is Mike, and I'm with the channel Mike the Piper. Check me out on the YouTubes and also, of course, most definitely, check out the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group for all of your absolutely awesome tabletop needs. And I will be playing today, hopefully surviving to the end of the game, Neath Fallenoak, a ranger of some ill background.
Awesome. All right, and I have to ask you a question that I should have asked you forever ago. Am I saying your last name right?
Not at all, but that's okay.
How do you say it?
It's Lasham.
Oh my god. Okay,
That's
I just realized I thought, I've never asked him. Well,
nobody in any RPG knows that. I can tell you I've heard your name pronounced wrong by everyone I know. Lasham?
Yep.
Oh man, sorry.
No, don't. No, it's all good. The funny part was, you know what? That's not the worst rendition of my last name. I was actually in Florida when I was a kid, and we stopped at a restaurant. My parents put their last name in. It was a bit of a 5-minute wait, and they called out the name, Mr. and Mrs. Los Hombres. And so we're all just sitting there waiting, Mr. Los Hombres, and so they went. My father went up and just had a look, and yeah, no, that's Lasham. But hey, you were close. You were really, really close. Not at all.
Not at all. So one more time, Lasham.
That's it.
Lasham.
Perfect.
Okay, so I was just different. All right, perfect. So now that we got that out of the way, sorry, that just occurred to me, and I thought, man, I've said it so many times, and I feel like an adult. So we're gonna go over to Tim Carney, and he can introduce his stuff now.
Hey guys, I'm Tim, also with Tabletop Terrors, and as you know, the last name Carney has been pronounced Kearney, Kearney. We get all types. And so, Mike, I completely apologize, and I totally understand. Mr. Lasham, meet Mr. Carney. If you guys are watching this and you're not a part of the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group, like Mike has said, it's a blast in there. We run games, there are some cool conversations, and it's a lot of fun. So, if you guys aren't a part, join. You'll have a blast. I am really looking forward to this game. I love when my brother DMs, and I will throw it over to T the writer as I crack open this energy drink.
Well, first, I would like to say, actually, to Tim's point, if you're watching this and you're not a part of it and you want to do things like this, that's where Tim and I run our games. We're shooting for running some sort of game with players that potentially we haven't played with, really anybody who's available, about twice a month we're shooting for. So if you guys are interested in being here with us, that's the best way to do it. So.
And can I say that I've had a couple of people say, oh, well, I'm nervous. Oh, it's like, listen, you don't have to have ever played at all before. So if you are new to the game, or if you've never played 5th edition, or you're a 3.5 or Pathfinder person, or even a Fate Core person, or Fate, don't let any of that stop you. Just hop over to the group, and let's have a good time. We're very casual, even though we have a lot of fun. We can... basically, we can kind of meet you where you are, if that makes any kind of sense. So I want to throw that out there, too. And, James, you might be clicked on yourself, or I'm clicked somewhere, because it's only your face.
If you're talking, it doesn't go on you. So you probably saw the last person talking to me, but I'm not clicked on anybody as far as I know.
Okay, cool.
So hopefully it's working. If anybody else sees that problem, let me know, because I hate rewatching it later, and yeah, it's on someone's face that's not talking the whole time. So now, without further ado, we'll go over to T the writer. Sorry.
Oh, I'm T the writer. I'll be playing Cryptbreaker James today, the rogue who is supposed to be there because he tries to get permission from people before breaking into their own family crypts to retrieve their artifacts and such. My last name gets mispronounced a lot too. It's Lanham, but gets put down as Lanham because there's actually a Lanham, Scotland, where my ancestors are based. And then when we came to America, we became horse thieves, but that's beside the point.
I think I got lucky with that one because I said it Lanham because it makes sense. Lanham.
Yeah.
Sounds too much like Kearney. You know what I mean? I'm like, there's no way that's right.
Yeah. And I'm in charge of the bardic retellings of whatever games I happen to be a part of for D&D stories out on YouTube, and have been enjoying my time here with Tabletop Terrors. So let's finish what we started.
Awesome. All right, so we'll do a quick recap, and it has been the last time we played was if the YouTube link was right, December 7th. So it's been quite some time since we've been able to get together. But to recap, our intrepid heroes, well, less than heroes, we'll say, made it down into the depths of this area, and carrying the Iron Heart, Eden was charmed into handing it over to the once thought dead Tomlin, and it was placed on the table. A disembodied voice said thank you, and that's roughly where we ended. As far as I know, you guys had released Tomlin from his shackles that he had on, and that was about where we ended. Does that sound right? Anything I was missing, guys? Anything important? Okay. So with that, what we are going to do is we're going to go back a little bit, and we are going to sort of dive a little further into some of our characters rather than just give you the meat right up front of what's going to happen next. So what I want to do is I want to go back to the night that you all showed up at the temple. And it was such a chance meeting, a temple in the middle of the night. It's almost impossible that that was not on purpose. But then again, you know, maybe looking further into your stories will help us. So we're going to go first to Neath Fallen Oak, who, before he got to the temple, well, Neath, do you remember what you're doing? I believe you were on the run from your past, more or less. You were recently run out, and you were running low on supplies, and you needed food, but you didn't have quite as many arrows as you usually carry around. Can you tell me anything you remember about that night?
I did. I still remember the hill giant. Big. God's he's big. Near 20 feet tall. I remember Marcus. He tried to save him. Tried to save all those people. Didn't matter though. In the end, a giant with his club crushed him. Stove his chest right in. It was an horrible fault. I tried to save him. I did. But it didn't matter, did it? Running from one murder, seeing another. Another man dead. Another man, a man who, for once in my life, I had a father. I had a proper father. Not some twat who was in love with my mother and decided to have her go, and I was born. Just because he was some high-born arse. And then tells me at his deathbed that I'm his son, out of wedlock. Fine. But then to have me own brother, proper, try and kill me because he thought for some reason I was going to be the next lord. And care about that. Care about the trees, the hunt. Care about things that are important to me, not sitting my fat arse on some bloody seat telling people what to do. It's not me. But he couldn't see that, could he? No, he saw that chair as something more bigger than him. So he tried to kill me. And then I killed him. Turns out, oh, can't quite kill the Lord. So I was on the run. And then there was Marcus. I remember that. I was hungry. Had maybe 4 hours to my name. Hunting in the woods. Looking at this one fat deer. And suddenly, without warning, without nothing, I feel a tap on my shoulder. Spun around. And there he was. Some old man. Rusted armour. But he was a good lad. First things he says to me, I hope you're good with that bow. I can't really do his accent, but you know what I mean. He was a good lad. And he taught me more things than I've ever learnt in my life. And he was a man, he wasn't my father, but he was the man I wanted to be a father. And that's the hardest thing, isn't it? What's the difference? Where's the change between the man who is your family and the person you want to be your family? And then I went. And I ran. After he died, I ran. Grabbed whatever weapons, whatever arrows I could. I just went. And then I saw a deer that I bloody missed. Maybe, just maybe, me missing was the best thing I ever did.
And scene.
So there are times as a DM when you have an idea of what you want to do, and your players just, I don't know. It's just like, I should just prep with you guys. So
Some
I will.
players just do it better.
Yeah, they're just like, no, just put away all that BS. So if you already don't have 17, go ahead and take a point of inspiration, please, Mike. But what I want to do is we're gonna dive into what Neath was really doing and thinking, and we're gonna talk more about the people that were chasing you. So what I want you to do is, we're gonna go back to that night, and after all of that, you're hunting down this deer, and as we all know, you eventually missed it, and despite that, in the last few days you've been with your companions, you haven't missed one single shot. I think every single one has found its mark, and somehow that day you missed. Well, there's a really good chance that you knew you were being stalked by something that night, and you weren't sure what. So if you could roll it's not called move silently anymore, a stealth check for me, please. And despite the fact that we're going back a little bit, we're going to pretend that you are the level you are, because it's not worth trying to use a 2 levels lower character sheet. It's not the biggest deal in the world. So you are very well hidden from what you're not entirely sure, but based on the sounds it's making, it's very likely some sort of bear. But bears they don't live in these parts, and you know that very well. And usually a bear for a hunting party wouldn't really be anything to worry about, but for one man on the run from something else already, trying to find food, a bear is the last thing you want stalking you. And so, a little bit before you got to the temple, can you tell me, a little bit about how you were? Well, I'm trying to think. Like I said, you did so well with your explanation that I feel like. Well, here's what we'll do. We'll leave it there for now. and we'll jump to someone else, and we'll see what they were doing that night, maybe. And we'll see how we can do that. So we're gonna go over to you, Eden, and it was a little bit weird that Eden found herself at a temple on a pilgrimage at night. Assuming she probably knows that people would more likely have been there during the day, and so you want to know why she was there at night. And so tell me a little bit about what happened before that, about days before. Why were you heading to this temple of the moon goddess Kor?
I remembered it as, most temples, most priests are very kind and generous, but I was in a big city, nearby, and it was frustrating. I couldn't get anything. I couldn't find any news on what to do, how to reconnect these old merchant chains, because my family on Varmholm had trouble. There was this, and we were icebreakers, but we couldn't even get through this. This winter storm pretty much knocked us out for such a long time. The island was practically encased in ice. We couldn't continue our merchant lines. We were stuck. And we really started to falter. We're just barely eking by, and we were this great family, practically the rulers on Varnholm. At least it felt like that sometimes. And by the time the weather finally changed, it was pretty much year. It was 3 years. It was 3 years, and when we returned, I remember going with my father to talk to the traders again and try and restart, and we had already been replaced. So we had to, sell our tapestries, anything we could to try and help ourselves and help our subjects. And it was really tough. And especially by myself, being a woman, there was no sons. My mother bore no sons. And trying to do the task that my father would rather have a son do, of trying to establish these trade routes again, it was very frustrating. And Kor, I had always enjoyed going there when I was younger, just because it was a little more separate. It felt a little more like home because it was an island in and of itself, being surrounded by the forest. And I knew that while there probably wasn't a lot of people there, night was, the goddess Kor, the goddess of the moon. That was a good time to hopefully send a prayer her way, maybe for something, for luck, for anything. And while I know I did, offer money here and there, honestly, my pockets aren't that deep. So I was hoping a little bit that maybe I could come across something valuable, anything to keep me on my way for this quote-unquote pilgrimage, to try and reestablish something. And it's been difficult and frustrating. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I will do anything to try and help home. We are the icebreakers. We're the breakers. We can't. I don't know what to do.
And okay, yeah, so I'm gonna super put you on the spot here, Cassie, and say I've played a few games. We played the Winds. We played all of these, and I don't know. You've come a long way. That was amazing. That was so awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for real, super good, and that it explains a lot more why you'd potentially find yourself in the temple, and yeah. So Eden shows up, and we had Neath, come flying through, but there's still the matter of John Key, the huffing old man that with metal in his arm that serves who knows what god, living in a dilapidated temple where, well, seemingly the center of the universe is at this point, in this moment when our heroes met. So, John, what What the hell were you doing living in a temple that's half burned out?
60 damn days. 60 damn days we were sieged. We came out of it. It was all right. We won. See, we were part of the church. And I say that loosely because we weren't helping anybody. We had figureheads and titles. And sure, we healed some people, and sure, but they made me a damn cleric. I learned some of the spells I was able to put on the show, but I was paid to draw blood. And that night, 60 days ago, after a 60-day siege, it's kind of ironic, but I had just gotten into an argument with my brother because he was saying that we were up for a promotion and that our battalion was doing really well and the church was very happy with us. And I didn't want to do it anymore. I was tired of feeling hollow. Look, I don't mind drawing blood. I don't mind killing for money. But I want to make sure I'm killing the right people for the right reasons. I started getting murky. And I don't like murky. So yeah, I was a cleric of Bryn. But I wasn't. They just slapped a blessing on me and gave me a holy relic, sort of a symbol that I could wave around and say that I was a cleric. But it's so that I could say I was from the church, because you can't stop the people from the church. They can go anywhere they want. They can do anything they want. I'm not going to say the name, but you know the one. The biggest, most powerful church in Ennis. So anyway, I get into this fight with my brother. And I storm off. And I took his sword. So I got Minerva and Risa on my hip. And I'm done with all of it. And I'm stumbling away to get drunk. And I start. So I'm working on a wineskin, second wineskin. I come across something odd. I come across this burnt out temple. James, I'm going to throw it to you and tell me, who do I see attacking the temple? I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, man. And it's funny because I wasn't sure if you'd go with it or if you were going to give me a shot, but I'm like, nah, that'll be perfect. So what you see, and interestingly, part of the reason that this temple of the moon goddess core has been abandoned is because it was so set so close to the forest. But when they built it, it wasn't. This was built and there was the back garden that was beautiful that you eventually explored, the tree line was maybe 50 yards away. But suddenly, slowly, it was almost as though the trees were walking. And nobody ever saw this. It was just, you walk outside and you think, I swear those trees got closer overnight. Like it just, and then over time, over, nearly, over generations, suddenly the trees are encroaching on this thing. And with those trees and with this unnatural sort of spreading forest, you have those eight-legged creatures that you smash on in your house, and usually they eat some other stuff. Well, spiders, the spider creatures. Well, they took root in the forest, and depending on where you live, you know that there are the little ones that you smash on the floor, and you don't have to worry much about them. And then there are the dog-sized ones, and you've got the horse-sized ones, and you've got the, their servants and their helpers, and the just webs, sticky webs, and so there's actually a dryad, or a drider. I don't remember which one. Which one's the half spider person?
Drider.
Drider. So there is a drider, and other creatures attacking this church when you arrive.
So I rub my eyes because I'm thinking I can't be seeing this. It looks like one of those dark elves, but the thing looks like it's gotten some sort of spider legs attached to it. And I look and I see the insignias, from some of the war bands of Grin that kind of pepper the lands here in Ennis. And I realize that they are trying to prey on this church. And it's probably the 60 days. It was probably the fight with my brother. I'm not sure, because normally I would have just walked away. I probably would have stumbled in the other direction and kept on drinking. But I was very upset. I looked down and I realized I never fought with two swords before. I think I was just drunk enough to try it. So I did. And so I grabbed Risa and I grabbed Minerva. And I'm not stupid enough to make sound as I charge. But I stumble as fast and as hard as I can. And I just gut this thing. I think it was more surprised than even me. So as this thing's guts are spilling all over the ground, I see that there's probably 5 or 6 other guys that I didn't realize. And now I'm looking around trying to figure out how I'm going to get out of this. It's probably 2 hours if it wasn't a minute. And at the end of it, Risa and Minerva covered in blood. I'm covered in blood. The iron on my arm is just painfully aching. And I look over and I see the priest. And they got to him. I don't know the symbols or the emblems, but I know it's a church, and so I go over and I hold him. Because I know what someone's face looks like when they're dying. And he was dying. And he asked me to take him to his bed. So I did. Frail old man. Could have probably lifted him with one hand. So we worked through this temple, and I lay him on his bed, and I just got to thinking. I got his blood on me. I got their blood on me. And I just decided that I was done with all this. And it's like he knew. It's like he could tell, because he touched my face. One of the last things he said was, "Don't give up on the light." And that's when I decided that I don't need the damn church to be a cleric. And that I was going to find Bryn, the path to my deity, myself. So I buried that old man, and I lived there. And even though it was a different temple, something about the moon, I knew it was a safe place, it was a nice place, and I was on my journey. And then a bunch of strangers showed up. And that's about all I remember.
And, and that makes sense. You were there and you were living there for, I'm sure you don't even remember how long. But you knew enough to survive, and you stayed. And of course, some people just, nobody ever showed up at this temple. And suddenly, all on the same day, 3 other people decide to stumble in here for different reasons, with different stories and doing different things. And that actually brings us to Cryptbreaker James, who really one of the few people that actually belonged in this place, that was more or less paid to come to this place. And now we know a little bit about you, James, and we know about your character and how you're oftentimes paid to recover relics that have long been stowed away in different crypts. Usually, generations later, somebody potentially out of jealousy or maybe out of curiosity, or maybe it's a magical item, needs somebody to go back into the very well fortified crypts and graves and mausoleums, and well, that's usually you. That's how you make your trade. Now, this particular one was a little bit interesting because usually it's the person that it belongs to that, say, owns the crypt or has some right to the things here, but in this case it wasn't. It was a colleague of yours, and he did certainly assure you that, nobody would find out. This thing was, destroyed. There was nobody owned it. The deed eventually fell back to the local government, and they didn't care about it enough, and the spiders were overtaking it. So, what about you? So you went there, and it was, nighttime. What can you tell me a little bit about before you went there?
Um,
So you had the letter from Tomlin, and you knew he was dead, but well, you thought you did, because I mean, now we realize that, well, he's actually alive. But when this letter was delivered to you, it was, well, somebody brought it with the bad news that it was found on someone, and it had been paid for and sent, but along with a very mundane, seemingly normal letter, you were also delivered the news of your colleague's death. In your line of work, that's not as common as, say, a soldier or someone else. So, what was there anything in particular that made you go after this? I mean, you probably knew you weren't getting paid. Your friend was dead.
well, if you put it like that, I mean, kind of drawing a blank, actually. I mean,
And
this
so,
is what I did. Maybe I thought if it was worth something to Tom Lim, it might be worth something to a museum or another cathedral of this moon goddess, or maybe confirmation of a relic that's worth 200 gold to somebody who is a college professor, mayhaps not paid as well as anybody else. If whatever this was went up for auction, it may have been a bigger cash grab. And again, like they said, it was not really owned by anybody, crumbling ruin, and I know all the burial details of all the different churches, and even the necklace that I wear has all the symbols of all the churches, so I know what to respect and what to touch and what not to touch, etc., etc. I mean, I used to build places like these, maybe not churches, but certainly burial sites, so the cultural implications were fine as long as it wasn't buried with someone. So I suppose it was half curiosity and half the promise of a fairly large payday, I'll be honest with you.
yeah, and like I said, it is how you made your living. You were basically handed a pretty big score, seemingly, and he mentioned, like you said, it's crumbling. It doesn't belong to anybody. Nobody will miss it, and in general, it should have been fairly simple. Now, in his letter, and you've never really, in his letter, he didn't make it very clear that you'd be facing such things as, displacer beasts, these ridiculous creatures that you rarely would see one of, let alone two, and you've come across nearly 4, 5, 6 in your adventures since receiving this letter. And that's to say nothing of the screaming ring and the kenku that was down in the tomb, and suddenly, standing in this tomb or standing rather in the with Tomlin near the construct in this very large room in a disembodied voice, it begins to sink in that you're all a part of something a lot bigger. You're all, I wouldn't use the word orchestrated, but you begin thinking, well, what could have been different? Where else could I have found myself on that night if this didn't happen or that didn't happen? And as you're thinking about all of these things, you're sort of taken back into reality. You're back to where you were with Tom Lim, and you've broken his chains, and it's time to potentially try and get out of this place. But then something begins to happen. The iron heart that you laid in the middle of the slab with the bits and pieces, the ancient armor and femurs and different parts seemingly flattened out as though for display in a museum. And the iron, the polished iron of the heart, melts away, and it doesn't seem hot, and it's almost like liquid metal, and it melts away, and sort of the form of the heart also begins to change, and suddenly you realize that it's not the iron heart of Venus. This is clearly made of copper, some sort of copper you've never seen, and it shrinks and grows, and it sort of wobbles around a little, and slowly it begins to fill the places that the bones don't. Well, you could say it's becoming the skin and the muscle of this thing lying on the middle of the slab. This Titan copper suddenly gripping all of these different objects, and lying on the slab before you is a cobbled together, half Titan copper, half ancient material blank man, a tome heart, as one day when this story is long forgotten, they'll be called. What do you guys do?
Slowly, I begin to back up away from what is transpiring in front of me. And I kind of, without looking, trying to tap back to whoever's backwards. And eventually I kind of smack John just a little bit too hard. Not on purpose, but just, oi, you know, it's got what it wants. And I think we should just get what we want and get James's friend, and maybe just should we go? Because I think we're all done here, and something's happening right here that I don't like, and I don't think you should like either. Just saying.
Like yeah, you're right. Let's get out of here. What's your name, Tom? Come with us, and let's be done with all this. What do you guys think? And I look to Eden and Cryptbreaker.
Oh, wait. And Eden would just be staring like, you're a blank man. This is a blank man. I mean, I've never heard them on the mainland, and she turns back to the blank man after kind of looking around at everyone else. What are you doing here?
And as you speak to it, it's formed on the table, and up to this point hasn't really begun moving. And when you speak to it you begin to see some movement, and it shudders a little, and it moves almost silently. You would expect the sound of scraping metal or gears or something when this thing moves, but instead, I mean, humans don't make sound. You don't hear their bones rubbing together, right? And you realize, well, that's, I don't know. You begin to question everything you know about this, and this thing sits up, and sitting on the edge of this slab, its legs dangling. Again, you hear, but this time from the mouth of this creature, simple 2 words: thank you. And if you remember, and if I remember correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, but when you came in this room, the doors closed behind you. The way that you came in, the doors closed behind you, and before that, even if you did open the doors, was the library with overrun by creatures, other creatures. So while you could certainly, attempt to leave this very large room, you wouldn't be able to go back the way you came, at least. And if everybody could actually give me a perception check. So, with everything that's happening, I'll say that, John, you don't really notice this. this creature is standing up, and suddenly, I would even say that you, Crypt Breaker, don't see this, but absolutely Eden and Neith realize that suddenly Tomlin looks different, and you're. It's almost like there's a shimmer about him, and you've run into shapeshifters before. I mean, there was the hag, and you've run into these problems, but suddenly Tomlin goes to attack Crypt Breaker, and I need everyone to roll initiative. So we have Crypt Breaker James rolled a natural 1 on his.
He's surprised that his friend's attacking him. He's
Exactly.
absolutely not even thinking of moving.
So everybody actually rolled, relatively poorly, I guess. Neith is still doing pretty well, but Tomlin also rolled very well. So we have Tomlin, and then we have. There are multiple numbers here. So now, okay, then we have Mike. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember your characters' names, but your real names are easier. So Neith got a 17. John got a 6. Eden got a 9. So obviously these aren't in order. And Crypt Breaker got a 1. So that's 4 players in Tomlin.
Great way to start the session.
Well, you got it out of the way. And honestly, it is very fitting thematically, because despite Tomlin being unarmed and potentially just having been wearing rags and different things, we'll see if he actually hits you, I guess.
So my armor would be 11 since I don't get my dex bonus.
I think that despite the fact that he is before you in initiative, you would still get it. I think if it were a surprise round, maybe you wouldn't. Does that make sense?
Sounds surprising.
Well, and of course, but I would say more importantly, basically he is acting just in initiative order, so you would get your dexterity. But
Okay.
I guess, yeah, because while it is unexpected, all of you, I would imagine, were ready for something to happen because there's a large creature. So while that bit was unexpected, so that would make it what you told me earlier, which would be 13.
Yes.
Which actually I thought it was higher than that, so I went through all that trouble because I rolled a 12, and he does still hit you. So we'll go back to my description. You feel the claws of a creature rake across your chest, and you take 3 points of damage.
Ow.
Now, from what you can tell, Tomlin doesn't have claws, and so that strikes you as a little bit weird. But after that, he disengages, and he sort of backs up a little away from you. So right now you're in a very large circular room, and there's a slab in the middle with a blank man sitting atop it, not moving at this point. And this Tomlin has basically attacked you and run more or less on the other side of the slab. So he's not very far away, but there's the only small obstruction in the room. He's on the other side of it. That brings us to, if I wrote this down right, Neith with the 17. Neith, what do you do?
I would look over at James and say, "What's wrong? Does he owe you money or something? What? Is this you all right?" And then I would kind of rush over, and I guess looking at him, he's like you said, he seems to be changed. Like his form seems to be kind of shifting or changing, and immediately I would recognize this, just like back at the hag. Like, not this again. And I'd grab an arrow, knock it, and immediately lightning would begin to snake around the snake around the shaft, and I would just kind of like let my sharpshooter sense kind of kick in as the whole world just seems to slow down, and just aiming for watching the reverberations of sound waves echoing off of its movement, just kind of aim for the dead center of that and fire.
Awesome. Okay. So you're. So sorry, should have been paying more attention. You're attacking. Yeah, I was like, wait, you're attacking the thing or Tomlin?
Tomlin, excuse me. Sorry.
Okay, no, that's okay. I thought I just missed it somewhere, and I swear I was paying attention. That's okay. That's what I
okay.
thought. So make an attack roll.
Okay. And I rolled a 15, so plus the. I think it's +2. Yeah, it's +2, so 17 to hit.
Okay, so yes, a 17 does hit, and so you pull it back, and like you said, there's this lightning striking around it, and you shoot it at Tomlin, and weirdly, suddenly he seems a lot more agile. You know, when you came in here, he didn't seem like he was able to really move much. I mean, he'd been chained up, potentially malnourished, but you shoot this arrow at him, and he nearly catches it. And you see, almost monk-like, this Tomlin, you know, in human form, tries to catch it, and he misses slightly. He misjudges it a little bit. It's probably the lightning, and it actually goes directly through his hand as he tries to catch it. And it's then that you realize that maybe it was this way before, or maybe you expected something, but his hands are on backwards. Where the palm of his hand would be is actually the front, and well, that's weird, but the arrow goes through, and how much damage do you do?
Oh, I keep getting so panicky that oh shit, I'm muted again. No, I'm not muted actually this time. Surprised. I did 17 damage.
Awesome. Okay, and so like I said, it goes right through his hand, and you see he shudders as the shock goes through, and the lightning potentially grounds directly through his heart, and a look of surprise across his face as it's a look that you've seen before, because you are constantly underestimated by your enemies, and it's that sort of look of contempt. And is there anything else you want to do? Move, yell, anything?
I think the only thing I would probably end up doing is just kind of backing up and kind of looking at everyone else to make sure they realize that I'm kind of backing and wanting to back everyone up just a bit.
Yeah, okay. So with that, we go over to Eden. What would you like to do?
Brandishing her halberd at the sudden, attack of this Tomlin-esque figure. Has he changed any more? Just the hands is all we've noticed right now.
Yeah, and like I said, it's difficult to tell if they were like that the whole time, or if it's a sudden change now. Your character, you can't really, you don't look at people's hands enough to realize. But now it's very clear that yes, his hands are on backwards.
She kind of glances at, the tome heart that's still kind of waking up, and she feels a little uncertain or unsure, at least because she believed that they were usually neutral. She's kind of uncertain if she should attack it or go after Tomlin or what. She also is Tomlin. There's a table, creature sitting on it. Tomlin's also behind it.
Yeah, exactly. So there's the slab, there's the creature, and you could potentially, like Neith was able to get an angle on it, but yeah. Tomlin could, if you were directly in line with them, you wouldn't even be able to see Tomlin through the, beyond the form of this very large construct in front of you.
Okay. So, I think holding her spear, I think she'd just rather play defense and pretty much make sure that, our archer's going to be okay and not be directly, easily accessible, since Neith is such a good shot over here.
Well, and that makes sense, but of course, you could potentially achieve the same thing, or rather, you could probably do that better by engaging someone in combat, because that makes it more difficult for them to attack other people. Whereas if you were just standing, if say, if somebody had a ranged attack, they could easily hit Neath, but they would face a more difficult. It would be more difficult for them if you were engaged in combat with them. So potentially, in this case, the best defense is good offense. I'm not saying you can't do that, but I'm just saying that you could potentially use this chance to attack someone.
I was thinking realistically, I was like, oh, I'll have her vault over the thing, but she's in a chest plate and she's carrying a big old halberd. That's going to probably not go very well.
Well, that's what your skills are for. Now, Tony did bring something up. There's a defensive stance that you are able to potentially, from what I can tell and what he wrote in the chat, because I don't know all the specifics, you can give somebody a +2 to AC, and you can provide half cover. So you could do exactly what you wanted for Neath.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, it's D&D. It's the last session. If you want to roll to try and vault over this thing and cut this guy in half, I mean, there's nothing wrong.
Okay, I'll vault over it. Let's see.
Not to take anything away from you, but you can also run around it. I'm just saying.
No, we're gonna vault because that's so much cooler.
Good. Okay, I agree with that. So, yeah. So basically, if you roll, give me an athletics check.
I got a nat 1. My athletics is 6. Strength.
Well, you can either take that, or you can use the inspiration that you got, because nat 1 on your first thing to do a cool thing is usually a good time to use inspiration.
Yeah.
Just jumps and bashes her shin right on the
Yeah,
that falls on her face.
Like
it does the Family Guy like.
Yeah.
For like 2 minutes.
These are Nymeria's dice. I never roll well.
Oh man, that's true. No, they might be. We'll get you new ones.
This is the last session, so we're a little late.
Well, for something. You're about to play Nymeria again in the Winds of Cerseiline, so so would you like to stick with the 1, see how it goes, or did you want to use an inspiration to roll it one more time and hopefully not roll another one?
I'll roll.
Okay, so we'll use a point of inspiration to gain advantage on the check. How much better did you do?
What do I add to it?
Your athletics, so you'll find that on the left. I think it's called athletics, right? Am I saying the wrong thing? Okay.
No, it is athletics.
Okay, I get them mixed up with 3.5 a long time ago.
All right, so 15.
Okay, yeah. So in that case, you run, and the slab is a little larger than this creature, so you're getting very close to this creature, almost potentially nicking it because it's sitting there.
Yeah.
And you, if you'd like, you can explain how you vault over this thing. I mean, I can come up with it too, but do you imagine like a roll or like the slide over the police car?
She runs at it, and holding the halberd kind of close to her in her left hand, she jumps and just pivots on her right hand on the table to land right by it, and basically immediately just points the spearhead of the halberd down.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have her just try and poke him, but
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you can totally do a thrust attack after that. I would say a 15 definitely gets you over it, and you're able to. Yeah, right. You're with enough grace, it's nothing's moving. So make an attack on this or on top of it.
What is it? That's like a 12. Yeah, it's a 12.
So a 12 does not hit, and the aftermath of the lightning coming through, like surging through him, and there's a hole straight through this Tomlin's hand. Your thrust attack, very agilely he moves out of the way, and you almost begin to see a little confidence come back into his face. Suddenly he was a little bit scared for a moment, but he seems a little less scared of you than he was a moment ago. And with that, we move on to John.
So I would say that I've become very protective of Cryptbreaker. I've seen this very methodical, almost dungeon architect turn into sort of a reluctant warrior in a way. Fighting the Bone Naga, and then coming here and being very cool and calm and collected in the face of these Nothics just raining down. Like, I sort of feel protective of him. And so when Tomlin lunges, I would be aware that I'm not trying to kill Cryptbreaker's friend. Like, I'm not going to cut him in half. But I would certainly do the like I've fought long enough to be able to slap someone across the face with a sword like that, whack, where it might cut them a little, but it's more of a
Yeah, flat
like,
side,
hey,
absolutely.
right. So I'm gonna do basically a slap, and then I'm gonna try to do a pommel to the back. So like slap, and then boom, the old knockout.
Yeah, the old knockout, absolutely.
So I'm gonna try that.
So in this case, you're running over there because he got the more or less the jump on you guys, attacked, disengaged, ran a little bit around the slab. So you're running up to him at this point then.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I would do that.
All right. Yeah. Perfect. So you run over there, probably scoffing at Eden jumping over the slab.
Well, yeah, and I'm kind of seeing, like, I guess it depends too. Like in my mind, all this is happening at once.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So like I see I'm just making this up, but at this point, I see Eden like running, like she hasn't yet fallen, and I see Tom, like it's all kind of. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
But I sort of see it all like.
Yeah, it's relatively simultaneous, but the idea is he's not next to you anymore. That's the main thing. So yeah, so go ahead and make some attacks for him.
All right. So the first roll is a 15, and that's to slap him.
And so you. 15 doesn't quite hit him. He sees this, and with everything that's going on, it's not that you miss. You're right on target, but again, there's this. He just seems so slippery. You maybe misjudged him. He seems like a normal person. You expected just you've done that before, and sure. He just right out of the way. He slithered right out of the way like unexpectedly. He moved a lot faster than you expected.
Well, I'm definitely surprised. I have the 2 attacks, so I'm going to use a second attack.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a little better. A modified 21.
Okay, yeah, so absolutely that definitely hits him now. You can narrate what happened, because like you said, you were kind of going for hitting him down in the pommel strike. Are you still going to try and hit him with the pommel, maybe a sword punch? What do you think?
No, I was going to do that. If the first strike hit his face, and he sort of brushed it off, or seemed like it didn't affect him as much, I would certainly be very surprised.
Yeah.
I would be like, and then sort of like hit down with the pommel harder,
Sorry, I realized I said something that maybe didn't make it clear. You didn't strike him with the first one, but the idea was it wasn't because you weren't good enough. It was because he was faster than you.
Got it. So then I would definitely be surprised if...
Yeah, because you missed. He just moved a lot faster than you thought he could.
Right. So if the trajectory was there and I'm seeing what looks like an artificer, like a crafter, an inventor, all of a sudden get lightning quick reflexes, I would probably be a little upset and miffed at myself. Or like, wow, I underestimated this guy. And then I would be going extra hard with the pommel, like, I'll show you.
And that does definitely hit the modified 21, so you can give me some damage there.
All right, cool. So it's... So, 6 damage.
Awesome. Oh, man. All right. So, and with that, so you pommel strike him and you hit him, and it does hit him. And it's... The sound that comes out of him is a lot more feral than you'd expect coming from a person. It's, well, any of you that might have traveled to some of the further off lands with more exotic animals would recognize this to be more like a tiger snarl when you hit him. And he gives you a look, John, like a look like it's weird because he gives you a look like he's going to kill you, and usually a look from the way Tomlin looks, you wouldn't really be intimidated. And not to say that you are, but there's something behind it that's more of a promise than it is a threat. And we go on to Cryptbreaker.
Okay. What is the tome giant doing?
So he's still sitting and seemingly completely still, about as still as the statue was in the room in the library.
Okay, I'm going to... Clearly that's not Tom Lim, but not a 4-on-1 doesn't seem necessary at this point. I've put a lot of faith into my comrades, so I will run and basically straddle the front of this tome giant. Like he's sitting, I'm going to be sitting on his lap facing him, and try and go for the heart before he's fully formed. Like Kali Ma, just like reach for it.
Well,
yes.
Now, I will say that he is at this point fully formed, and the heart, it kind of melted and expanded to be most of his body mass. So you can absolutely do what you're doing, but it would basically be, you're stabbing metal, more or less. You're absolutely trying to stab a construct. Now, I will, for reasons that may make more sense later, give you advantage, which I think allows you to sneak attack, correct?
Yes.
So you can do that because he's not currently, we'll use the word active. But the idea is, you're not necessarily getting a bonus because there are vital organs showing or anything, but you are getting a bonus because because you have advantage.
He's still forming the Megazord.
Yeah, exactly. He's still, like I said, inactive, we'll say, is the word I'd use. And will maybe potentially make more sense later. So, absolutely, go ahead and do that. So you do that. He doesn't really move or anything, or seem to react, and you do exactly that. So give me an attack roll advantage and some sneak attack damage, or backstab, whatever they call it.
God, I rolled a 6 and a 7, so that's a 9 and a 10.
Well, so even with advantage, like I said, maybe potentially the way this metal looks, the way this copper looks, it looks almost fluid, and not necessarily like it's flowing, but it doesn't look like hard metal like you've usually seen it, and it's sort of swirling and it's moving. It seems like, I feel like maybe you expected that dagger would have slid right in there, and you got ready, and you've only recently, I think, killed the first thing, when you took down the hag. So something happens. You go to stab, and it's kind of like when your soda is empty and you think there's something in it, and you pick it up with a lot more than a lot more heft than you expect, and you kind of look a little weird. I feel like you go to stab this thing like it's going to give a little more, and your blade it certainly hits it, and kind of makes a dent, or not a dent, but like cut in the metal, but your blade glances off.
Okay.
And with that, we go back to Tomlin, who, again, a little bit unexpected. Like I said, he's had a lot of emotions seemingly crossing his face, but he's not really sure what to make of you. And it's at this moment that he says, "The time for waiting is over. Attack!" And the Tomeheart stands up to face you.
Do I get deposited on the floor at his feet?
Yeah, so he stands up and doesn't necessarily attack you immediately, but yes, he stands up, and you would potentially fall, and depending on how agile you are. In fact, give me a reflex saving throw.
Dexterity?
Dexterity, yes, that's the word. I didn't play 3.5 enough to get every single check confused as much as I do. Like, seriously.
Do you know a quick trick is to have a character sheet open?
I know, and I think that every time, and then I'm like, oh man, I don't have... So you're totally right. Yeah, that's my bad. So with a 5, I would say that while a lot of rogues, would potentially fall back and roll and stuff, you do fall basically flat on your back, and you're now prone in front of it.
Okay.
I think that it looked like Mike tried to show. Oh no, he had a little card. I thought he was pretending that he was showing what a Tomeheart looked like. I was like, oh, did he draw us a little picture of it?
Not exactly.
So I don't know if I had a picture for this or if we have a picture for this. So I will consider myself very unprepared, because it'd be really cool to be able to see the Tomeheart, huh? It'd be better if I could just search Google for it. Tim had a picture at some point, and I don't remember. So potentially I will find one, but not when it's my turn to tell you guys stuff. So that makes it the Tomeheart's turn, and it is in fact, well, it's gonna try and stomp on you James. It stands up, and like I said, while it doesn't attack you immediately, you fall flat on your back in front of it, and you're staring up at this 8-foot golem-seeming thing, and it lifts its foot and tries to stomp on you. And due to you being prone, I think is going to have advantage. Does that sound about right? That's a thing, right?
I think it's advantage and I lose my dex or something like that.
Well, that's the thing. I know that he gets advantage. I don't know. Basically, I imagine you'd still have the chance to roll out of the way. I will go ahead and give you the bad news that I rolled a 13 and a 20 with my advantage. So DM's rolling hot today. And yeah, this is going to hurt. Okay, well, luckily I didn't roll great on that, but you take 11 points of damage. And so I imagine that, you fall down, and like I said, he lifts his foot up, and he probably catches part of your leg or your arm, and, nearly, if not completely, breaking some of your bones, or maybe cracking a couple of ribs.
Okay, let's be fair. I'll do D6.
Well, I'm not saying that something's actually breaking. I'm saying it for flavor. I don't want to impair you any further than that amount of. Listen, I won't stop you from doing it if you want to pull a Tim, but I'm just saying that I don't want you to be like, oh, well, my arm's broken, so I can't attack. I'm like, oh, that's, I think it's cool, but I don't want you to be out of the fight for the rest of the game.
It's a rib.
Okay, yeah, perfect. So you rolled for it, and he steps on you, and you feel your ribs crack, and potentially a little bit more pressure probably would have punctured a lung. So despite it hurting so much, you count yourself lucky.
Okay.
All right, and so it does that, and it kind of, after doing so, turns to look at the rest of you, and with that, we are on Tomlin's turn. Well, we're still on Tomlin's turn because he kind of activated it, and that's kind of why I was saying it was inactive, because clearly he's controlling it. That's the whole deal. But now Tomlin, after doing that, Tim is going to take a swipe at you.
Never!
And he does not make it, because whatever your AC is, I believe it's higher than 10. And again, he swipes with his hands, his seemingly backwards human hands, and he misses, and again, he just keeps sort of bouncing back between, oh, I've got this, and oh man, this is dangerous, but he still has a little bit more of an air of confidence considering this, golem that is now on his side. With that, it falls to you, Neith. Actually, that is perfect for our purposes. I'll say that's probably the closest. I'm going to share this image that Mike found, because it's really good.
Oh, cool.
So I would say it's a little rougher than this, and doesn't seem to have a weapon. It's just fists. But it looks a lot like armor. It's very copper looking, and I would say its face has a normal face, not necessarily Cyclops or so it's less wires, but it's basically, it seems like solid armor. And some of the bits are armor that you guys have found in multiple places in the temple, as well as in Tomlin's study, his apartment. And so this thing is suddenly looking a bit familiar to you, but
Nice.
I don't know what that thing is, but I'd say that's a pretty good approximation, we'll say. So yeah, Neith, it's to you.
I look shocked at this thing getting ready to attack, and then I look at my bow, and I look back at that thing. I'm like, no, and I kind of seeing the former Tomlin of whatever this creature is. Actually, speaking of whatever this creature is there a possibility for me to find out what it is?
I was actually, I mentioned in the chat because I wanted to say, if you have a reason that you would know what it is, or, basically feel free to explain why Neith would know what it was, or at least what you think it is, and I think that will make for an interesting situation.
Sure. Well, I remember, it's funny, sitting in the wood, One of the worst things that Marcus ever stuck on me was all these lectures, all these different creatures, all these different places he's been. Far to the east, far to the south, where the desert sands row endlessly. Doesn't matter to me. All I wanted to do was shoot something, right? But it's those hands. It's those bloody hands of his. I know that. It's just something, some sort of magic creature, something like that, some demonic entity. I'm trying to remember, but it's hard. And I'm gonna roll. I'm guessing what, an Arcana check?
Well, that's the thing. Like I said, if Neith has an idea of what he thinks it is, I would say you know it. I don't think that requires a roll.
Okay.
Character-wise, you know what it is. If you have an idea of what it is potentially.
It's rock something. Ah, bloody hell. Rakshasa. I said. And then I call out, it's a Rakshasa.
And with that, if anybody is looking at Tomlin, you hear again that snarl from an animal potentially some of you have never come across. Whether you've seen some of the traveling zoos with a tiger in them, and suddenly before you there's a haze, a puff of almost unfurling smoke, and in front of you is Tomlin, or rather isn't Tomlin. It is a Rakshasa, something that potentially most of you have never even heard of or seen before. A devilish creature that really lives only to trick. And I've never heard a tiger laugh, but it sounds a lot like what you would expect that would sound like. Half roar and half deep growl, just very unsettling. And you now see him in his true form. And this is, he is a Rakshasa. And I mean, I should be better prepared with images, but this will be an easier one to find.
Awesome.
Kind of panicking, I quickly run to pull out an arrow, aim it, and I'll make 2 attacks. The first, none of which will be considered sharpshooter on this one.
Okay, yeah. So this is potentially what a Rakshasa would look like. The one in the monster manual is my favorite, but you can see that his hands are backwards and otherwise is a humanoid tiger creature. Tomlin is not dressed quite as well as he is here. He still is in, he's actually in leather armor, light leather armor, and doesn't seem to have a weapon. So yeah, go ahead and make your attacks, Mike.
Okay. So, first one, total miss. When you roll a 3, it doesn't matter what you have for a bonus.
Kind of not really, yeah.
Yeah. And the second one is an modified 20.
Okay, so yes, absolutely that does hit. And so, yeah, give me some damage and tell me what that looks like.
Sure. So I aim dead on. The first one was almost like it was to distract it, because this thing is so fast. I know that if I am gonna hit it, I'm gonna make damn sure that I can definitely get it. So I kind of use one arrow in a lightning fashion, almost as just like a flare distraction. So I'm like, well, cats like shiny things, and I kind of throw it, and the arrow just whistles by him, and the Rakshasa turns and looks, and before he has a chance to turn around, I've already got a bow drawn, and I kind of whisper into the arrow, and the steel of the arrow begins to blacken and pit, and this kind of viscous greenish yellow, just this disgusting looking fluid begins to kind of like bubble out of it, almost like this nasty pus, and I kind of aim straight for it, dead on and hit it. And the all the metal around his leather armor begins to smoke as it begins to dissolve as this acid arrow just plunges straight into his chest, dealing. I hope I got this right. Well, I just realized now because I have the Colossus Slayer. Okay, that's right. I was right. Oh, very nice. 15, 18, 21. So that's 21 points of damage, 18 points of just screw you arrow damage, and 3 points of acid damage.
Oh, okay. So that was you adding them up. I thought you were saying 21 damage plus 18 damage plus 3 damage, and I was like, Jesus, you did like 57 damage to this thing.
And we're out of here.
Yeah, I was like, well, I mean, I didn't think you'd kill it that fast, but geez, he's okay. So
Yeah.
all right, that makes sense. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So again, you see this exactly like you said. It begins to like tear away, or rather dissolve some of this armor, and you begin to see the fur below it also beginning to dissolve, and a little bit of blood coming out and mixing with the green. And he, again, very much underestimated you, but Neith, you know that they're less fighting creatures and more trickery creatures, so you're potentially surprised that he engaged you at all, but you realize that it may be because he has a golem on his side. And with that, it goes over to you, Eden.
Okay, so Eden, now, she's righted herself. She missed her first attack, and that was frustrating, but she turns to see this creature continuously seeming to just practically dance around our little attacks like, nah, I can get away from everything. And then all of a sudden this arrow just slams into it, starting to, eat away at all the leather. And she smiles, kind of seeing this as an opportunity, and immediately lunges forward with her halberd. Let's see. And just trying to swipe like just a slash from shoulder to hip. So we'll see.
Yeah, okay. So give me an attack roll.
Okay. Okay, that didn't work. That's a 4.
Okay.
So she's out of range. Maybe she stumbles, kind of, and just nicks his foot. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and again, despite everybody, like even Neith, it took a feint arrow to basically hit this thing once, and everybody is a bit surprised at the agility this thing has, and it's you can tell, you realize that you don't hear about these things because generally they don't get found. It's rare that they do get found out. They impersonate other people and they come and go, and that's why nobody knows about them. So it doesn't surprise you at all that it's difficult to kill. And with that, did you want to do anything else or move, or I think that's about it, right?
I'll do my extra attack because
You have 2 attacks.
I have an extra attack.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, you ought to use that every time.
Right.
So yeah, go ahead.
I got an 8. So it's another miss.
Okay, yeah. So again, you swing at this thing, and you swing one more time, and like I said, it's a lot more agile, I think, than you expect, and yeah.
Well, knowing a little bit about these golems, she would also shout, have to get the Rakshasa, it's completely controlling it. If we get rid of this guy, we can stop the golem.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with that, it goes over to you, John.
I would see this Tomlin sort of like shift. Like I imagine it just in my vision. It seems like it happened in my peripheral vision. And like maybe there's an odd sound to my ear, just like, as he sort of just changes. And now I'm looking at this thing. I don't know what it is. I don't think I would have experience with them exactly, and I don't think I pay enough attention that if I would have been around in an area with them, that I would have remembered that.
Mhm.
So I would say very surprised, but I'm not shocked because I've fought all kinds of crazy stuff. I'm more surprised that this is the kind of crazy stuff we're fighting.
Yeah.
Like, as we've seen the Nothics, we've seen everything sort of kind of lined up, but this was a surprise, was not expecting Tomlin to be this thing. So I'm going to basically berserk. Like, I'm going to just go, okay, this is what I'm made to do.
Yeah.
So I am going to just barrage this thing. Like, I'm looking for leg cuts that would maybe like hamstring it, or like throat cuts. Like, I'm looking for any critical spot to drop this thing.
Yeah,
absolutely. So that's what I'm doing here. So just tactically sort of facing off with it. And, I think that John would say something along the lines of, I can't say you're ugly, but you sure are unnatural. And I'm going to put you down. And sort of playing that cat and mouse game, like circling off with the thing, and then boom, I take my opportunity. First roll, modified 19.
Awesome. All right, yeah, that definitely hits.
Okay. So I'm going to roll the second one so that I can decide what to narrate.
Yeah, totally.
Modified 11.
Okay, that one does not hit.
I imagine this thing is very wise. I imagine it's very shrewd. And so the first attack, you know what? I want to emulate, rather, this thing being sort of erratic and wise and having sort of a primal instinct.
Yeah.
Where do I hit it? You tell me. Because I strike for one place, but I don't feel like I would hit my mark.
Well, and with everything that's going on, and so many different people and dodging Eden's attacks, I think that he realizes that you are the most that he should fear tactically, because he can just see he sees a change in you at this moment, and the way you begin to square off with him, he can tell that you know what you're doing. Anybody can kill someone, and so I think when you swing again, I think you're going to hit him like in the arm. Like, he puts up an arm to potentially, like with a leather bracer, knock away your sword, but you gain purchase and it cuts in. So like a forearm cut.
Perfect. And I imagine that it would be sort of like like I try to be as quick as I just saw this creature, and he anticipates it. So the first cut is forearm, and the second cut he's able to just dodge entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be both attacks. That would be my full sort of attack. But right now what I want to do is, as far as movement goes, I just want to keep this thing engaged with me.
Yeah.
It is fighting me, and if at any point, anything else happens to take it away from that, I'm like clanging my swords together, I'm like poking at it. It's like I want the brunt of it to be on me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so with that, we go to you, Cryptbreaker, lying on the ground with a couple of broken ribs in front of this very large golem that just stomped you.
Obviously, there's a little bit of recoil to being stomped on by something so large and heavy, but I can kind of see that all three of my other party members are struggling with what is apparently a tiger man, and this is just like, you have that moment where you step back and you wonder, how did I get here?
Exactly.
I was supposed to go get a dusty book out of an abandoned ruin. Now I'm fighting a giant robot monster with a tiger man from God knows where, south of the equator. With a woman swinging a halberd, somebody who can change his arrows into any element, and God knows what put metal into John's arm that somehow makes him stronger. And I have that emotional, that intellectual recoil of, yeah, this is my life now.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is get up as best I can and get my water skin.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm going to try and leap onto the tome giant's back and kind of like get one arm around his neck if I can.
Yeah,
Not to do any
absolutely.
harm, but to like hook myself up there because he's obviously bigger than me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And using the pressure between my chest and his back, spray water over onto the rakshasa.
Okay, yeah, all right.
What would I roll for that?
I would say in order to get up on this thing, it's the golem, the tome heart, doesn't really move around very much. Its movements are very slow and deliberate, so climbing up it won't be too difficult, and it's close enough to the slab that um, I think that you can do that no problem. Um,
Okay.
because it's more like climbing a statue, and while you are doing it in the heat of battle with the help of the slab there, it's just a matter of jumping on it. And then you said you want to throw water on the Rakshasa?
Yes.
Okay, and then in that case, I would make you. So how would you want to do that? You have a water skin, or you have.
Yeah. I was basically just gonna like grab the weight of it, point the opening, and just like squeeze really hard.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. So I think you do that. I would say go ahead and make an attack roll and add your dexterity to it. Um, and we're gonna.
Ooh, nat 20.
Okay, so that is actually, yeah, like just about the best thing you could have done when you tried to attack something with a liquid. And so I would say that this thing was, relatively full, and you squeeze it, and it's interesting because again, it's fighting everyone, and at this point, it's almost trying to dodge too many things at once. Arrows, and then a halberd comes in and it moves left, and then John comes in with his swords and it moves right, and there's just so many things going on that the last thing that this creature expects is a whole bunch of water coming down on it, and you do so absolutely. So you squeeze this water skin, and water, sort of it gets all over this thing, and it is now dripping wet with water. And its fur and its armor and stuff like that. Any cloth it has on it is a bit soaked.
Okie dokie.
And is there anything else you want to do? Did you want to, well, really, I don't know, jump down? Anything else that you'd like to try?
I'll put my hands over the Toneheart's eyes.
Okay. Sounds
Like
good.
I've already realized I'm probably not strong enough to pierce it in any way, so the best I can do is slow it down while my comrades deal with the other bit of exoticness in this room.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you are now holding on to it, and with that, it is Tomlin's turn, which um, he. Well, so it's interesting that you decided to throw water on him because it's at this time that Tomlin, well, he disappears, or at least he tries. I mean, in front of your eyes, he's suddenly invisible, and you realize that he spoke a word and gripped a component, and suddenly he's invisible. But the problem is there's still water all over him, so he's still, you see him disengage, but you follow the footsteps. He's invisible for all intents and purposes, but if you wanted to, you could still probably attack him because he's dripping water everywhere, and you could kind of hear the slosh of him, or rather like the squishing of his armor and things. So in game mechanic terms, basically, you guys can all still keep track of him, even though he's invisible. Usually invisibility would give him advantage on attacks and you disadvantage, but in this case you've kind of thwarted that until this water kind of dries. It's like if he walks around enough, it's going to stop being effective, but for now, he's going to have... You can still see roughly where he is. And so, like I said, with that, it is his turn. He goes invisible, and he speaks again to the Tome Heart. And he seems to do so in just short one words, and he says, "Kill." And so the Tome Heart Cryptbreaker tries to grab you off of his back and potentially throw you down. I don't know if you've ever tried to reach your back, or if you were ever 8 feet and tried to do so, but he's going to have a little bit of trouble doing this. And I don't think that he can't quite seem to get a grip on you. If you could actually make an opposed athletics check to stay on him or potentially do something else, he begins to start reaching for you, and you can either try and stay there, or you can jump off or do something else, basically.
31.
I was going to say you may also fall off, but with a 31, I think that, so, I don't know, you can just fly, I think. That's how athletics works. No, but basically, you can decide, like, I'm with such a high roll, I want to more or less give you a free move action, and you can stay on him and continue holding on because he's having a hard time getting you off of him at this point. You know, he was unable to reach now. He kind of spins in a circle. But like I said, if you wanted to do something else, if you wanted to jump off of him, climb on him, do something else, you could at this moment.
He can't quite reach me, so I am succeeding where I am now. So I'm just going to keep my hands over his eyes and just kind of hang on as best I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not make any further motions, because he squished me last time he got a hold of me, so I seem to be safe when I'm on him.
For now, yes, absolutely. So, and with that, he, the Tomlin, we're calling him, that's all you ever knew him as. He begins speaking. And like I said, he may not entirely realize that you can kind of keep track of him a little better than he'd hoped, but he seems to think that he's invisible. And he says, "Cryptbreaker, you were never supposed to bring friends here. This was never... You led to my demise in my previous life. And I made it my mission to be the downfall of you. And then I found out what you were after." And you realize that he's almost pacing. And he's gotten further away from you, and he's kind of, like I said, you see some of these wet footsteps, and he's walking around, and it's difficult to tell because he's invisible, but he's speaking with his hands, and he suddenly seems very elegant for combat happening in this room. And he says, "As soon as I found out what you were after, well, I had to have it." And with that, we go over to Neith. Your turn.
Certainly. So I pick up an arrow, and as I pick up an arrow, I begin to hear the other arrows begin to just knock around in my quiver, and I look down and I realize that I'm almost out. That's all right. And I as I draw the arrow back, I begin to channel, and I begin to look. Right, mate. Let's do this. Let's do this for our new friends and those who we left behind. And I reach back and I kind of close my eyes, and I'm just feeling the Rakshasa's presence, and I just let it go. And as the arrow begins to kind of tumble through the air and spin, again it begins to pick up the dust and the chips of stone and old pieces of armor, and it begins these things begin to almost orbit around the arrow as it spins through faster and faster, and all of these pieces of armor begin to harden and curl into these long jagged spikes. And I'm casting Hail of Thorns as the arrow slams into the Rakshasa, and then all the pieces that begin to follow, and it has to make a dexterity saving throw, or it's going to get all kinds of hurt.
Awesome. All right, so he gets a 15.
That does beat it.
So does he dodge it entirely? Is there some damage taken, or?
I believe it is. I
He
believe you
takes
get
2 damage for great narration.
Yeah,
No,
he takes the damage of inspiration.
and this is awful of me. I'm the unprepared jerk here. because I can't remember if it's half or none at all, and that's terrible. So
well, no, it's okay.
please forgive me.
Listen, man, I make up rules. All right, don't worry about it.
All right, he
I'm like,
takes
no,
six. All right, cool. He takes 16 d20 damage.
I don't have enough d20s for that. Okay, so takes 1d10 on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. So 1d10 and half. Is that what that means?
Yeah.
Okay,
so,
yeah. So
because he passed, and I don't have a 1d5.
Oh yeah, so yeah, 1d10 and half.
We'll just do that. So I'll just roll the 1d10. So that'll be 3 off of the Hail of Thorns. And because of Colossus Slayer, that's 2d8. So that's another 8, plus the 3 is 11, plus 12, 13, 14 for the standard arrow, plus 15, 16, 17 for another lightning arrow attack. Yeah, and obviously casting a spell and attacking, then that pretty much will end my turn. I don't believe I should be able to do a second attack because that's a bonus action.
Oh yeah, no, I see it.
Yeah.
And honestly, you may not need it. This thing begins. This creature begins phasing back into existence, and it's right where you thought. Like he said, he was invisible, but no longer. And you realize that he is in a world of hurt. There's blood coming from his mouth. He has multiple cuts. His forearm is bleeding profusely from where John hit him, and he's really having trouble.
Before I end my turn,
mm-hmm.
Is it all right for me to shout out to Eden, Eden, finish it off! You've got this! And can I give inspiration to Eden?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Okay.
If you want, basically what we'll do is we'll say in that case she'll have advantage on her next attack against it. Based on, like you said, your morale and everybody seeing this thing is really, really hurting. So Eden, it goes to you.
So, knowing that this thing is now just covered in water, she stares this thing down as it finally phases back into their reality, and upon hearing Neath behind her, she lifts her halberd and then just slams the butt of it into the ground and casts Thunderous Smite. Which, let's see. What do I add to a roll?
So you have your in the middle there's your damage. Usually it would be your strength plus your proficiency bonus if you're attacking with your halberd.
Well, it's a spell. She's just using that to channel it, basically.
Sorry, what spell are you using?
Thunderous Smite.
If I remember correctly, guys, a spell save is 12 plus your something modifier. It should be written on your sheet, but
So it's 8 plus...
Yeah. Plus your whatever, 8 plus your proficiency, plus whatever modifier you're using for the spell. So in the case of you being a paladin, it should be your charisma.
Correct.
Charisma. Okay. So it looks like it's a 21 to hit.
Okay, so
To hit.
okay, yeah, and so absolutely. So you said this is, what did you say the spell was? I'm sorry, Thunderous
Smite.
Okay, so basically what I need you to do is I need you to roll your damage for me, because that does hit him.
Yes. 7.
Okay, and so
So he's basically, as she hits it, almost like this wall of air just kind of bursts forth from her point, kind of. It bursts forth from her point and slams into him, knocking him like 10 feet away. And of course, because of the water, just targets him so easily and electrocutes.
yeah, and I will actually say that. So you did kill him. And usually I would ask a player to describe what happens, but there's something special about this particular death. In the moment before you begin casting your spell, and Neith yells out to you that you've got this, the Rakshasa begins to phase shift. He more or less opens a portal, and he's going to leave. He realizes he's beaten. And so as you're casting the spell, you see a portal open, and he begins to more or less stumble through it. But the thunderous wave distracts him, and he loses concentration, as well as, like you said, pushes him. And the portal closes, and the upper half of his body, from about his collarbone down under one of his arms, falls to the floor, and the rest of his body is gone. And so he basically, while he died, he was also sliced in half by his own portal, and so his upper body is now lying on the ground in front of you. And yeah, he's dead.
Well done.
So, well, I'm trying to think of how to make this as suspenseful as possible, but the idea is, depending on what you guys do, you slowly begin to realize that this golem isn't attacking. Like you said, it was very clear that this person was controlling it. And you don't know by what means, but unless that these means were on the upper half of him, you're potentially out a way to control it yourself. So, yeah, basically the threats are all gone. We're out of initiative order, and what would you guys like to do?
I will quickly rush over to James and begin to kind of tend to his wounds and help him out. So I'll be casting, unfortunately for the last time, cure wounds on him. And I'm just saying, you're gonna be all right, mate. You're gonna be all right. It's okay.
Yeah.
And he receives 6 health, like healing, as just the leaf begins to kind of crumble away. And I look at my bag and I realize that I am all out of leaves.
Excellent.
Awesome, yeah.
Thank you.
I kind of tap him on the shoulder.
And that potentially, it's gonna, he feels some of his ribs. It probably didn't heal him entirely. I know he ended up taking a lot of damage, but his ribs are, he feels them sort of mending themselves a little bit. He knows he's going to be a little bit sore, have some bruises. Yeah, and so if there's, depending on what else you guys would like to do or say, it may potentially be time to leave this place.
What about the golem?
Well, that's what I'm saying. What would you like to do? Is there anything interested? Like I said, currently it's not moving, but if you want to look around or further explore, it's up to you guys. It depends on how eager you are to leave this place or potentially try and figure something out. But at this point, it seems like it's a big hunk of metal in the middle of the room.
I think Eden would try and ask her question again with, how did you get here?
And you would hear the disembodied voice again. Where earlier the voice came from the statue, you'd hear the disembodied voice, and it would tell you, I was brought here a long time ago, piece by piece. It's been a millennia since I've had a physical form. And someday soon, my brothers and I will again walk the earth. Now that the heart that was stolen and hidden away is back.
And where will you go?
And there's an eerie silence. And he says one word. And he says it in such a way that you realize that it's probably his name. Conquest. The Tome Hearts will once again rule.
but that was never any conquest. Back in Varnholm, it was, well, servitude.
And if you guys would like to make a history check, I'll potentially give you a little bit more information about that.
Natural 1.
Oh, good God.
Like, I'm trying to give you guys the plot here, and nobody knows a thing.
Well, and I guess oh man, okay, so everybody rolled very poorly, but the thing that you do know is you're not wrong, Eden. As far as you know in the history books or from what you know in your life, or there's never been a time that the Tome Hearts ruled. That's just absolutely untrue. There's never been a time in the land of Dragongrin where the Tome Hearts, they aren't even as old as this Tome Heart thinks they are. But wars have been fought over more correct information than that.
We can't let him. We can't. Eden, we can't.
I never said we were gonna do anything. I'm just confused.
We can't let him wander free. There's bits and pieces everywhere of all different ones in museums, around here, no doubt scattered everywhere. If that's their prime directive or whatever you'd like to call it, even if there's just one, eventually there would be too many and it would just start all over again. We can't let him leave.
I would like to kind of look at it up and say, "Oi, metal man. Look, whatever happened between you and, well, us in the past was the past, isn't it? So instead of trying to conquer us, what about working with us, eh? After all, I mean, this was long ago. Maybe you could just come with us and, have a laugh, have a pint. I mean, I'll drink your pint for you, but just saying."
And to put a point on what Neef is saying, he remembers the vision that he had when he touched the doors to the library. And when you guys first were hearing the disembodied voice, and he remembers the armies of Tome Hearts marching on armies of men and elves and halflings and seemingly all of the known world. And it's now you realize that this vision was certainly of the future, that this is something that is, well, you realize that you're at a turning point in history, exactly like Cryptbreaker said, that, well, it's up to you, but he's right. The Tome Hearts, at the hand of conquest will potentially rise again, and he says to you, but we were subjugated. We were slaves. Your people, and you realize that he begins to trail off, and he starts to realize that he doesn't. It's almost as though his knowledge ended, and he says, but no, but you did, and the effects that Tomlin had over him is slowly fading away. And he says, there was never a time that the Tome Hearts were slaves. There was never a time that the Tome Hearts ruled. And he turns his head, and he is looking at you, Neith, like honestly curious.
Look, I'm not a smart man. mean, you see this? Sabot. It's what I'm good at. I do it very well. I mean, that's all. That's what I'm saying. But look, I don't remember any time when we heard stories about Tomart's blank men ruling. I mean, we've heard stories about great mechanical works called Tomarts and blank men, those incredible bits of, I don't know, wonderment. Life seemingly created out of nothing. And I mean, to see one now, it's amazing. You lot were put into legend. I remember hearing it when I was a boy. But no one's heard of you in a long time. Maybe, just maybe, the time has come. But we have a chance right now, right here, to change history.
Can you give me a persuasion check with advantage, please?
Poopy, okay? Wow. I've never rolled doubles in my entire life. Unfortunately, they are double 12s. So that's it.
That's interesting. No modifier there.
0 modifier.
Well, and this thing, is looking at you, and it's very weird for a golem's face to seem endearing. And he says, "That thing, it told me to kill you. It told me you were the enemy. It controlled me."
Right, but I mean, do you have any knowledge or memories of demons and other dark things? Because that thing was a demon, it was evil. And that being said, if it could control you, it practically controls life, creatures, right? And I kind of like look back towards the others like, help me out here. Come on. Work with me. Huh? So who's to say that you're not alive? Just like me. Just like this one, whose ribs you almost pushed back into his spine. This one, the tall one, he's got metal too. It's possible. Just saying.
Look, Tolemhart, you are alive. We have books, we have tales of your kind back on Varnholm, and while you were appreciated, you were loved. There was often, especially families who could afford it, they would have one in their house. You guys would help take care of us, and we would take care of you.
And hearing that, his eyes fall, and you can tell again, you're very surprised to see very human characteristics on the face of a golem, of something so large that moments before, or minutes previous, was trying to kill you. Realizing now that this was against its own will. And he says, "I remember my family. I remember, like you said, wonderment, creation, nothing but happiness and what happened. How did I come to be here?" And he continues thinking, and all I remember is my heart being taken from me, and then darkness. And it begins to occur to him, how dangerous can I be? How How alive could I possibly be if somebody could so simply take over me and use me for such harm? I realize now why my heart was stolen away. And I'm not sure if it's right for me to continue living in this world.
And you'd see that this whole time John has kept a very calm posture after all this. But his hands on his swords are white knuckle. And he is ready to strike, even though he does not appear as though he's ready to strike. And he says to the Tome Heart, "You're raising some good questions. Listen, Metal Man. If there's even an inkling of a chance that you have conquest on the brain, I gotta put you down, or I gotta die trying."
And he says his name again, Conquest. That was my purpose. I was a planner in the war. I served the king, and I helped to figure out outcomes and decide what was going to happen. I was the reason so many died, and I lived with no views of my own, simply the views of another man. And I seem to remember there's my last memories. Do you know of Lightfall?
Lightfall? Never heard of it. Is it a place? Is it a person?
No idea.
And he says, it was my last action before I was dismembered.
Lightfall.
And he says, yes, I served the dismembered lord. And you realize now that this particular Tome Heart was the property of the now evil ruler of the land of Grin. For all intents and purposes, this Tome Heart was a very large reason that the good guys lost. And Lightfall was the last day before the rest of the time. Lightfall is now how they measure time. There's a time before this and a time after, and now the dismembered lord rules over Grin, and you realize now that this Tome Heart was a large part of that. So despite not really having a directive of its own, it aided in the killing of millions and the changing of the world as you know it. And this all begins to occur to him, and he looks at you, John, and he says, very well. And he says, like I said, there's a reason my heart was removed. And he crouches down and sort of leans over as though ready to be, almost as though he's on a chopping block.
Mm-hmm.
He more or less presents his neck to you, and he says, I'm alive, but I can't live with myself. Kill me now.
And as he's talking and putting forth all of this, John would think back. And he would think back to the night that he fought with his brother and the night that he came upon the temple and he fought the Drider, and his life changed because his brother and their battalion of the church were being conscripted into the dismembered Lord's army. And that was a line that John couldn't cross. He couldn't cross the line of the church and the rulers of evil being so intertwined. And so he understands. And he remembers even seeing his brother consorting with these war makers, these faceless sort of stormtroopers for the land of Grin, and he wanted no part of it. And so now, John is ready to execute this creature, and everyone can tell. But in the short time they've been together, he's also learned to trust his companions. And so he looks around, especially, in everyone's eyes, and so he looks to, say, Cryptbreaker James, and he just sort of like is waiting for the command. He's like, I'm going to do it unless somebody stops me.
And enough time passes that he's sitting here, and he's got his head down, and he looks up, and he looks at you, John, and he looks around at everyone and says, "It's up to you today. I do not think that after what I've done I should live, but it also wasn't me that did it. I was commanded. I followed orders. I know that's not a good excuse, but I did my time. What you may not understand is if you kill me, I will die, and hopefully I'll be sent off to, well, wherever it is I'll go, but no matter what, a swift death will be better than living without a body, with no concept of time or space, locked away."
Why do you have any want to live, though?
And he's almost surprised by this, and he looks up and says, "Well, I don't want to die, but you've come here to judge me, have you not?"
That was not the original plan. Come to Varnholm.
And
I think. Oh, go ahead.
yeah,
Well, I was just gonna say that John is sort of twitches at that. Like he doesn't like the idea of this thing leaving. Even though he asked, he almost assumed it would be rhetorical, and so he kneels down, face to face with the tome heart. And if you were to look at a profile, they're the same height.
Mm-hmm.
And they almost look as though they're looking into mirrors in a way. John with his metal arm, and he looks into the tome heart's face, and he says, "I'm a lot like you. I follow a lot of orders. I did what I was told, and I took a lot of lives. But I made a choice. And this is your choice. If you decide to leave here, if any person comes to harm because of you, I will hunt you down and I will take that heart back myself. You have to make a choice."
And he says, "Choice. Tome hearts are never given choices. Tome hearts are told. But what kind of creator gives a creature the knowledge of choice and never gives them one themselves?" And he stands up and he says, "If you let me, I'll leave this place. And I'll make it my mission. Conquest will be my mission. And I will one day be the downfall of the dismembered lord, or I will die trying. Choice." And if you don't try and stop him. He begins to leave. He turns and begins to walk from you.
I would call out, wait! Just wait a minute.
And he stops and turns and says, yes.
We found your art locked away, and we brought your art back to you. And all of us made a choice. We could have destroyed that art, and you would not be standing here making your choice today. Is that true?
Yes.
So, I'm not saying this to be all high and mighty, because I've got a problem with authority, just saying. But, if the four of us made a choice to give you your life back, why would you go and throw it away and march right back to the art of the demon to go fight and die? Because you won't win. You will not go through an entire country of evil men and just throw your life away. Why not come with us? Learn. Get better. We can all work together to come up with some idea or something that help us get back at this dismembered lord. Kill him outright. So we can be together as a team, and you can at least make the life that you've got now mean something. And it's funny because, I say this, the words are coming out of my mouth, and I realise now that all I've been doing is running, and I've not been living. But it took me to give you a life, to create life again, for me to realise, what am I doing with my life? So don't, please, I beg you, and I've never begged anyone nothing. Don't throw your life away. Don't just go half-cocked, wanting revenge. Make it mean something. Make your life mean something.
And he says to you, life. Well, how do you make it mean something? What does your life mean? And he seems confused at this concept that he's been given orders his whole life. And you get the impression that you're getting through to him, but he honestly has doesn't understand entirely quite what living is. And he says, I'll go with you if you'll show me what life means. And he holds out his hand twice as big as yours to shake yours. And yeah, he just holds it there.
And I would put my hand and kind of like grab like a quarter or a third of his forearm,
Yeah.
as I'm sure that he clamps down on like my entire arm, and I kind of like slap a hand over top, and you know what? As my old teacher used to tell me, let's learn together, mate. Let's learn together.
And John would look at Cryptbreaker, and he'd say, in a weird way, he kind of belongs to you. I mean, this was your expedition, your buddy, your letter. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not taking care of this thing. Cryptbreaker, you looking for a pet?
I don't think so. Cryptbreaker looks very conflicted as far as what's going on. Doesn't really have the strength or the ability to stop any of this, as it seems to be a 3-1 vote for letting it walk out alive. Given the chance to grow and change, the blank men became an unstoppable fighting force that sweep over the entire planet. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't try to change the world, I just try to get by in it, but a rock this big will make a lot of ripples, and I don't intend to be around when it drops.
Calling it a pet. It is a sentient being that has choices. And no, it's not life being a pet.
Oh, sure, but it can be easily commanded by someone who weaves the right magic, and just resting his mind and willpower away was apparently nothing.
James, my friend. A dog is a dog. Well, you told me that, right? And I'm a dog. And a dog is only as good as its master. But a dog is still a creature with its own life and ability to make its own choices. We're all animals in some way. Some of us just made of harder stuff, and kind of point over to Tom Hart. But he's one of a kind, he's the last of his kind, probably. We teach it how to live. And if it ever one day we find another one, it teaches it how to live. And it goes down the line until tomarts become part of this world again, but this time free to make their own choices, their own minds and their own thoughts and feelings. And we can't change that, mate. No more than you can teach an old dog new tricks, right?
Cryptbreaker just kind of looks to one side that way, that says he knows he's beaten. It doesn't matter what his choices are. It just doesn't mean he has to like it. He clearly completely disapproves of what's going on now, but he doesn't have the courage nor the backbone, coward that he's been, to stand up to all three of his friends at the same time.
And I think John notices this and sort of takes a step towards Cryptbreaker. Not sort of. He takes a step towards Cryptbreaker and almost stands on his side. And he says, "Listen, if you got a bad feeling about this, our mind's not made up yet." And so you sort of see that John's on the fence and that Cryptbreaker's making a lot of good points. You know, and John continues and he's like, "I've seen a lot of death. I've seen a lot of well-meaning cause a lot of people harm. You know, we got to think about the repercussions of what we're doing here. Because as far as I know, this thing can live forever. What happens when I'm dead in the ground and I can't babysit it? Who then?"
I vote Neath.
If Neath outlives me, we're in trouble. I mean figuratively, when we're dead and gone. This thing lives on. What, are you just going to hope that it stays good? We hope that its conquest doesn't become to destroy the Copper Sun? You know, I'm torn. I'm a friendly killer. That's what I am. That's what I'll always be.
I say let it live, but I know Neath mentioned, to stop running, and I have my people to take care of back on Varnholm. Unless it's coming to Varnholm, I can't take care of it. I still have places I have to go.
I'm not sure what you meant by that question.
Shut up, Siri.
That's Alexa.
That tome heart. Cassie has a tome heart. Yes. Tell them to not kill him.
The tome heart says, "I'm not sure what you meant by that question." And with that, the tome heart turns to you, John, and you, James, and he says, "I have no desire to kill. Truly, I have no desire at all. I've served my entire life, but I'm very interested in this concept of living. Before now, I was okay with, well, I've heard you humans call it death. I wouldn't say it's quite the same for a tome heart. The concept of living and dying. There's no death without life, and until now, I didn't think life was possible for me. True life, living the way that you live. Not just deciding the fates of millions and following the orders of your creator. If it's all the same to you, I'd like to try my hand at living. Yes, I understand that I am very dangerous, but so are you. And yet you stand here with no judge before you.
Don't let him live.
Oh, don't say I didn't warn you.
I wanted to keep the heart, but I mean, he's here now. I'm not gonna just let him figure it out with Neith. I do think he should not just go out alone.
Yeah, you guys had too much unprotected adventuring, and now you have a tome heart.
Well,
And I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. But he does. He does say, and he
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Like, honestly, I should have known. I thought it would be like a quick little.
I don't know. I didn't catch it at first. I was like, and then T started laughing, and I realized.
So, but he does say to you, he says, "While I would love some help learning how to live and not simply being told what to do, this concept of babysitting me is, well, I'm not interested in killing anymore. Yes, it's not impossible for my mind to be controlled. It is what I was made for after all, but as I said, the dismembered lord convinced a lot of people, humans like you, like yourselves, to do a lot of things, and he did so without magic. So if that's possible, I think the least of our concerns should be a single golem walking the earth, making his own choices." And again he whispers that word, choices.
Can you cook?
Really, John?
Oh, really? Did they teach you how to cook?
While I was not taught to cook by my creators, the one thing tome hearts were created to do was learn, so I can pick it up easy if that's what you're asking.
Well, we'll keep you around if you cook.
Boy, here's a crazy idea. There's an abandoned building that we were just at when all this began. Seems like the kind of place that would be not a bad idea to get fixed up. Maybe a good place to put. And no, we're not calling you Conquest anymore. Tell you what, you choose a different name. Don't matter to me. We're not Conquest.
I got an idea. Why don't we call you Redemption? I'll call you Red for short.
And he again, he says the word. It's almost as though when he thinks of something, when he considers a concept, he says it, and that sort of kicks off the process of searching for, this knowledge. And he says it. He says, redemption. He says, sure, redemption.
Yeah, because Choices is a stupid name.
And he says, he thinks, and he says, I've heard that before. The action of regaining or gaining possession of something to clear a debt. Well, that seems fairly apt considering everything that's transpired. You've given me something that I otherwise couldn't find, otherwise had no access to, choices. And now, to repay my debt to you, I'll do my best to make the choices that you'd like me to make. Make the right choices. And I won't march into the mouth of hell knowing that I'll fall. I'll try to live my life, same as all of you folks. Redemption. I like it. And unless anyone would like to say anything else, I think that's a pretty good place to end the session 6 of the Iron Heart of Venice.
Sounds good.
So that was very interesting, and just about the best example of the DM having one idea and the players having another, and I decided to go with it. And this was so, I don't know. I feel like everything else led up to this, and I was very happy about that. I'm glad with the way this went. I was afraid that it wouldn't be everything I hoped it would. Maybe that it would fall flat, but I'm like, no, I really am happy with how this ended.
Yeah, but I almost attacked the thing right away. When he said conquest, I was going to say, all right, John swings at his head.
Which I think is fair, and honestly, admittedly, I didn't decide what I would do. I said it would be there, and I thought, we'll see what they do. If they attack it, they'll attack it, and potentially you would have never heard any of what happened. I didn't plan any of that. I just decided, that it was a tome heart, and potentially that if you attacked it, it would attack you, but otherwise if you spoke to it. Honestly, I didn't consider that you'd speak to it, so I think that was really awesome, Cassie, because, I don't know, it made sense, but I didn't plan any of that, so I was very happy with how it turned out. I'll say with that, we can go ahead and do some outros. We'll do them in the same order that we did before, and of course remember that unless there is a Season 2, which is possible, this will be the last session we see the 4 of us together playing these characters, so make it a good one. Cassie.
So I was playing Eden Breakers from Varnholm today, and my name's Cassie, obviously. And I do a bunch of ceramics. I have stuff up on DeviantArt at Fox Cunning Trickster. It's one word. Check it out if you want, and thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Over to you, Mike Lasham.
Hey, he's got it. All right, everybody. Hi, I'm Mike the Piper. Thanks a lot for tuning in today. I had a ton of fun. This has been just a beautiful mini campaign, and I don't think I've ever actually been in that many mini campaigns. Either it's been a lot of one-shots, but this has been just great. So check out everyone's channel here, Tabletop Terrors, tabletopterrors.com, Absolute Tabletop, T the writer, and of course Cassie on DeviantArt, because her art is off the hook, and the chains and all the other things, and it's great. And yeah, if you got time, check out my shit too. I had a lot of fun playing Neath. It's been great, and I'm hoping for Season 2, just saying, so vote by crit rolling on that like button, and subscribe to all the stuff, and hopefully we'll see you guys again next season.
All right, over to you, Tim.
So I'm Tim with Tabletop Terrors. I run the channel with James, our wonderful DM. I want to thank everybody who's watching right now. Tons of shout-outs. We got Chad Nick from the Gastro Gamer. We got Treble, Mitch Smith. Something really funny that Cody said earlier is he he mentioned a significant other, and then he said, "And I'm not talking about Tim, James," which got me really good. But I just want to thank everybody for watching. You can be doing anything on a Sunday, and you chose to tune into us. If you like this style of fun gaming, like James said, we're going to be doing a lot of this. Probably twice a month is what we're shooting for. Go head over to the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group and join, because that's where we post our interest posts. And that's facebook.com/groups/Absolute Tabletop. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching, and you're the best.
Awesome. And we'll go over to you, T the Writer.
I'm Tony. I'm T the Writer on YouTube. I had a lot of fun playing as Cryptbreaker James. You can expect a bardic retelling of this epic finale on my channel for D&D stories. And yeah, I had a lot of fun, you guys, so thanks for having me along.
Absolutely, man. And I will go ahead and give the biggest shout out to Tony, T the Writer, because this all started because he asked, well, Tim and he were talking, and he thought it'd be really cool to do about 6 sessions, a mini campaign, as Mike put it, and I had never really considered that before. I like the idea of knowing the amount of episodes you'll have, because it's almost like you can fit a lot of really cool stuff in a one-shot, because you're able to do whatever you want, and it doesn't matter if necessarily as much if people die or things go crazy awry. But it's something similar with the 6-episode structure. If I ran a mini campaign, I'd probably do something similar in the future, even if we do call it seasons, because then I know that I can do an arc. I can bring you guys here. It's not as much like Monster of the Week, to say, compare it to television shows. So a big shout out to Tony, because like I said, that was basically your idea, to do 6 sessions, and it worked out beautifully.
Oh, thanks.
And with that, like Tim said, I am James of Tabletop Terrors, the other half of Tim with Tabletop Terrors. So Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but our next game, like I said, we're trying to do this every 2 weeks. Today's the 31st. Our next game would be the 14th.
Yes.
You'll be running it?
The
14th, is that wise?
On Valentine's Day?
Yeah, just because, well, that's the thing. It may not be great for some people, but it's Sundays. The reason we're doing this is Sundays are the day Tim and I usually work. So while that may change, the idea being that no matter what, whether it's the 14th or some day around there, an interest post will be going up soon, and if you're interested in getting into that game, you'll need to be a part of the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group.
Yeah, and we might bump it for player availability. Just because, like, T's making a good point, Valentine's Day is tough to look at your significant other for a lot of people and say, but honey, I really want to play in a game.
It'll be, it'll be like a singles game. We'll do like a mixer, like we'll do like some people have those parties on Valentine's Day for all the single people. It'll be like that. Cassie's not enthused about that idea, because I will also be playing.
Hey, guys.
Oh. Tim, I think we lost you, buddy.
Well, what do you know? What a perfect
Come on,
way
speed
to
gaming.
freeze.
Oh, hey, there you go.
Am I back?
Yes.
I'm not sure what happened. I was making a joke about speed gaming, but I guess it didn't work out. So, yes, we're going to be running something.
Yeah, all that to say,
in
the next month, potentially, you'll have 2 chances to get into 2 different games. Tim and I are usually going to trade off DMing and playing. And my plan is to try different systems and different things. So this was a D&D 5th edition adventure in Dragongrin, but I want to try Numenera. I really want to do a Star Wars Edge of the Empire campaign. I played in one at one point, but running one would be awesome. I know Mike's excited about that.
Yeah, Fate. We want to try the Fate system.
I have some of a Fate Fallout one-shot sort of workshop that's going to be really cool.
And Pathfinder. Like, I want to try like some Pathfinder in 3.5. I know, Tony, that's like your specialty.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So it's the kind of thing where, seriously, if you guys want to game with us, that's the best way to do it. Because in the same way that you want to game with us, we also need players. So join the Absolute Tabletop group so that we are able to run games every time we want to.
Well, on a point of clarification, some people think that you need to have a YouTube channel but you don't. It's not like that at all.
That's very
some people have said they've messaged us or they've made comments on Facebook saying, well, I don't have a YouTube channel, but I'd love to game with you guys. No, listen, any human being can game with us. The only thing you need is essentially Google Hangouts.
Exactly.
So there's no prerequisites. You have, again, I want to make it clear, you need no prior experience. If you're like, hey, this is my first time playing D&D 5th edition or playing any of the systems, great.
Yeah,
Who
it's
cares?
gonna be
Let's
my
have
first
fun
time.
and learn.
Yeah, it's going to be my first time playing Numenera, and actually I've played one game of Fate, but it'll be my first time DMing if I do that, and Edge of the Empire I've played, but haven't. I'm like, no, we're fairly new at this too, so yeah, we're getting through it. So yeah, I think that basically does it. Like I said, it's a good idea to join that Facebook group because that will not only allow you to play in games, but hear from us, hear about our new stuff, our stuff coming up. And yeah, other than that, maybe one day we'll see you guys for Season 2 of the Iron Heart of Innis. But until next time, may your dice roll high.